Welcome back to Let the Quran Speak, and now we answer questions we've received from you, our viewers. If you have a question yourself, you can visit our website, www.quranspeaks.com. Okay, Brother Shabir, the question we have, the first one, do prophets ever commit sins?
This has to be answered with some caution because there is a prevailing Muslim doctrine of the Isma, or the infallibility of the prophets. But that doctrine has been often misunderstood. People just simplistically think that that prophets cannot commit sins. And that's not what this doctrine implies. This doctrine implies that God protects the prophets from falling into grave errors that will somehow detract from their greatness of prophets, or more specifically, from the confidence that we can have in taking them as role models and as conveyors, conduits for the message of God. So that doctrine then, put in its right perspective, will allow for prophets to commit such human errors as are quite normal, and does not make the person an evil person for committing
So
such
can you give me an example
error.
of a prophet committing such an error?
Well, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, himself committed some errors of judgment, and these are...
Are these considered sins, though?
When we use the term sin nowadays, we can use it with a variety of meanings. We can use it with, a dreadful meaning, as something really sinful like rape, murder, and so on. Obviously, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did not know such thing, and it's unthinkable that he would. But we also use the term sin in a less offensive sense. Like, let's say a person says that a cake is sinfully delicious. They mean to say that, it's almost like a sin to eat the cake. It's wrong to eat the cake, but one wouldn't consider that to be an evil thing. It's just an inconvenience or something that is detrimental to one's well-being overall. So we're using the term sin there in a less offensive sense.
Or could we say did something wrong? So the prophet
so we can say that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and other prophets too, have done some things which, from the Quranic point of view, needed correction. The Quran corrected the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, on a number of occasions. And the Quran refers to the Prophet's sins and says that God will forgive his sins, that which were past and those which are to come. So there's something called sin, but obviously in a less offensive sense than the person deliberately disobeying God in a major manner.
Okay. The next question, are all sins of equal weight?
No, I think in my answer to the last question, I've in fact touched upon this, but more specifically, whether sins or acts that are required by Muslims, there are gradations, so not everything are the same. Obviously, there are some lesser sins and there are some greater sins.
Okay, the next question, what happens if someone lives in the North and South Poles? How do they pray? How do they fast?
Well, obviously the question is about timing, because the timing of the prayer and fasting are regulated with reference to the time marker that was available to people at the time of the Quranic revelation, which was, people worked with the relative position of the earth and sun. And they worked with shadows and such ancient devices. So if one lives at the extreme regions, then the regulation of time becomes a problem, and some scholars say that one can follow the timing that is more regular from a nearby city, or they can follow the timings which are known from Mecca and Medina, since this is where the Islamic revelation first was applied.
So someone living, for example, in the very northern part of Canada, for example, Nunavut, how would they perform the prayers?
So they can, very simply, they can follow the time charts that are available now on the web. They can just use the time charts from either Mecca or Medina and regulate the prayer times according to that chart, and also their fasting times.
All right, thank you for your time, Brother Shabir.
You're welcome.
And that's all the time we have. You can visit our website, www.quranspeaks.com.